everyone, hope you're doing well and welcome to our preview of Derby County against West Ham United. I'm joined by Dominic to get a view from the other side. I was going to say take us back to the start, Dominic. We'd be here for about 2 hours, but can you give us a bit of a summary of what's gone on at Derby recently?
Wow, what hasn't gone on is probably the better question, I think. But look, it's been a long and windy road, and unfortunately this season, Derby through the worst of it, and they can actually look forward to some optimism. But yeah, it goes back a few years now under the ownership of Mel Morris, basically taking the gamble that quite a lot of clubs in the Championship take on trying to get to the promised land of the Premier League. And it goes all the way back to when Steve McLaren first took charge as manager, and it took the Rams all the way to Wembley, and there was an opportunity, and they were just a few moments away, despite a Richard Keogh slip, from getting promoted in the playoff final. Bobby Zamora, I know you all know well, scores for QPR, and then that's it. They have to go again, and that felt like probably Derby's best opportunity back then to get promoted. And then from then on, it was a case of chasing that same sort of glory under Mel Morris with his sort of majority ownership over the club. He bought players that probably didn't have the money for. He took a punt and he brought in managers that kind of lost the identity of the football club. So you think of the Frank Lampards, the Kokus, the numerous different attempts at trying something a bit new that he did. Paul Clement as well, Nigel Pearson, so many different strategies, so many different players. And it ended up with that points deduction and it all coming back on them after the EFL got onto it and came back at Derby last season and led to relegation from the Championship. And that was due to a very heavy points deduction. The club were under embargo, so they couldn't sign players. And look, it was a messy season last season for Derby County, but it's been sort of the climax of many years of being ran badly, bad decisions being made at the highest level. So look, it's a chance now for Derby County to show what they're about under a new local owner in David Clowes. It's actually quite convenient and fitting that Monday is the anniversary of the fan march for Derby County. So prior to a game against Birmingham City, thousands and thousands of Derby County fans walked together in unison, singing all the songs from the town centre all the way to Pride Park. And I tell you what, just go on social media or go on Google and Google some of the images, because it really was a city united. And that's the anniversary on Monday. So it just shows the hardship that the club have been through, but also how much can change in a year under good owners and a forward-thinking manager, probably the right manager at the moment in Paul Warne with the way it's going. 18 matches unbeaten. A lot can change. And there's real optimism. And it's a chance to host Premier League teams like West Ham, go to Anfield in the League Cup earlier this season and play Liverpool and go all the way to penalties against them. So these are the nights, these are the occasions that the club march for, but I think the priority still remains in League One.
Does the future feel secure? I mean, you're alluding to it there, and I'm getting the impression it does, but as a fan base, are Derby fans thinking, right, we've gone to hell and back, but now we can finally look up rather than over our shoulder?
Absolutely. There's room for optimism, and the club is being well run by a local owner who is a Derby County fan, a real Derby County fan, as there were views on what Mel Morris said. He was a Derby County fan in the past, but David Clowes is home and away fan, goes with the fans, still misses doing that. I think in terms of sitting in the director's box now, I think it's still strange for him. He's a very modest, humble bloke, and he's looking after the best interests of the football club at the moment. And I think what they're doing at the club right now is they're not acting in haste. They're not rushing to any appointments. You see the way they waited until they could get Paul Warne earlier this season. There's a search for a head of recruitment that they're waiting to get the right person rather than just anyone. They're going to let him serve his notice. They're trying to build up relationships back with the league and the EFL, because Mel Morris had some very public bust-ups with the EFL with a number of statements about broadcast deals and so on. And look, there is room for belief. And I'll tell you what, if you're at Vale Park on Tuesday night, there is confidence flowing through the fan base. There's confidence flowing through the team. And that largely comes down from David Clowes and what he did in taking the club over, that he reluctantly did, I have to say. He didn't want to have to be the person to do it, but he's done it. And now Derby County, they do have that belief again.
High flying in League One, 6 games won on the trot. Do you feel that you'll get promoted? You got to get your crystal ball out for this one, Dominic, or are you getting promoted?
Well, yeah, in my job, I don't like to give opinions too much, but in terms of the way it's going, I can just use the stats to almost back up a thought process. And look, 6 wins in a row in all competitions, 19 matches unbeaten now in 90 minutes. That includes that penalty shootout to defeat to Liverpool, but don't really talk about that. And look, the good form is there to see, and Derby do seem like the pace setters in terms of the ones that could catch the top two. It was a big moment last Saturday against Bolton Wanderers. It was fourth versus fifth going into the game, and Derby had to kind of send out a message to the rest of the league and a message to those around them in the playoffs and win that game, because they notoriously struggled to sort of take effect in those games. A lot of 0-0 draws. They did that. They won 2-1, and it was pretty convincing as well. So there's, as I say, again, there's room for optimism. But what Derby have is a very thin squad. So a couple of injuries, like any team, could derail their season. But at the moment, it looks very good. And with January still a few days left of it, there's still room for maybe an addition or two. But we'll wait and see.
You said at the very start that you've got bigger priorities at the minute, which is understandable. So going into this game, do you think it'll be a rotated team, albeit you do have a thin squad, or do you think, it's momentum and confidence, so you'll go out there and take it seriously and try and keep that run going?
It's a really interesting one, because Derby, quite simply put, don't have the squad depth to really change a lot. I think there will be players rested. So some of the key players that you might point towards, the likes of David McGoldrick, who are well into their 30s, but still one of Derby's best players, that they need to look after him going into the games this season, especially with Morecambe at home to carry on this run. And again, like I say, chase the top two in League One. So Morecambe at home will be a bigger priority for that squad and Paul Warne and the club than West Ham in the FA Cup fourth round. That's the reality of the situation for the Rams and for the fans. But it's a chance under the bright lights on a Monday night to these players want to play in this game. But look, they're the conversations Paul will have to have. But yeah, make no mistake, the priority is League One. And I think there could be a couple of players rested.
Players to watch then. I know you said there'll be some rested, but who's the players in form at the minute for the Rams?
So, I mean, look, I actually put a tweet out the other day saying trying to pick a player of the month for January is going to be incredibly tough, because you've got Craig Forsyth, who is into his 10th season at the football club. It was unsure whether he was going to sign a new deal in the summer. He came back under the situation to play again. Always notoriously been a left back for the club, had cameo performances at centre back, but this season he's been playing on the right side of two centre backs. And he's fitting like a glove, and it's like Beckenbauer. He's been fantastic, and he's been a huge contributing factor to the success they've had defensively. Mendes-Lang is a player that can terrorise any defender on his day if he's up for it. I'm sure whoever's at left back for West Ham will know they've been in a game at least. And then you look at Max Bird, Conor Hourihane in midfield. That's where Derby County's strength on paper is. But you've also got the likes of David McGoldrick, who is a wise old fox now. And his ability on the ball is something people quite underestimate. I think when Derby signed him, they didn't quite expect him to be so good on the ball and so composed and bringing other players into it. And he's been a revelation. But then on the left, look, I'm going on, but on the left, Tom Barkes, and he's been on fire lately as well. So there's so many players to look at when you think about the ones to watch. But if I was going to pick any out, it'd be Nathaniel Mendes-Lang probably. And I've not even mentioned Aaron Cashin, who might not be fit on Monday. He's one of the bright young players for Derby County, and he's been an absolute star this season.
Good man. Thank you very much. Right, from your team to my team, West Ham. What's your thoughts on the Hammers?
You know what? I'm not sure. I think because last season, I think it was ridiculous what David Moyes did, and it felt like West Ham was back from the outside looking in, and I'm not sure if that's the feeling you guys get, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get battered for saying that, but it felt like seeing you in those European nights that in the big stadium, it felt like it finally fit together. And with Declan Rice obviously captaining the side and taking over from Mark Noble, it felt like something was happening. And then I'm not sure if it is the transfer business in the summer. You look at the names on paper and they make sense, like Paquetá and Skamaka as well, isn't it? On paper, they look like exciting signings, but it's just that problem again for West Ham that I feel like always pops up is the striker. And I know Danny Ings has been brought in, hasn't he? And he's picked up an injury. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out for. And that just feels like it's typical at the moment for you guys. You bring in a striker, they get an injury, and he's out for a little bit of time. But I think patience should be given to David Moyes. I think too often I'm on the side of the fence where we don't give managers enough time anymore in football. You just have to look at what Arteta's done with his project. And I know that's a very once in a almost blue moon example at the moment, but I think David Moyes has earned enough credit in the bank. Look at what he did with Everton all those years ago. Different context of football, different environment as well. But look at what he did, and you can tell the players like playing for him. I always think that's a telling sign. So give him time, whether he gets it. I mean, you'll know better than me.
Yeah, but this isn't about me. This is about what I think. This is why I like doing these opposition previews, because you get to hear what the fans of other clubs think and stuff. And I always find it interesting. And I quite like hearing the perception of West Ham and David Moyes from an outsider looking in. Do you think West Ham will get relegated this season?
No, I think there's 3 teams worse than West Ham. I think that's one of the things that when you look at the Premier League relegation zone, you look at the situation Everton are in. I think Nathan Jones could turn it around somewhat, but I think it just might be too much for them this season. Southampton, and then let's just get some good PR and throw Forest in there, because that'll make everyone smile from a Derby County perspective. But no, look, they've actually picked up a lot, and watched them last night against Manchester United. And look, they're only a couple of players away from being a very steady side. So whether they do go down, I'm just going to put them in there simply because of the Derby allegiance.
I like it. I'm all for pettiness. Don't you worry. I'm all for that one. Now let's turn our attention to Monday night then. How do you see this game going?
Monday night. Again, it depends on what sides come out. I think the atmosphere is going to be there in Pride Park. I think when away fans like West Ham, who have asked for the bigger capacity as the cup gives you the right to do so, bring numbers, make noise, as you have famously done over the years, I think it's going to really enhance the atmosphere. Pride Park's always loud, and I really think it does depend on the first 20 minutes or so how that goes, whether West Ham show their class and play the likes of Declan Rice and
yeah, go 1-0 up.
Wow, okay, maybe not then, but maybe if Derby show their class, I think those first 20 minutes.
Do you tend to start games fast?
Yes.
Do you come out the? Oh.
Paul Warne's whole philosophy is run, and go. So from minute go, they set the tone and they want to get in the faces. They press high. They're on the front foot. Every time they get the ball, it's forward thinking. It's not backwards passing. It's people say it's a very direct style of play, but it's just fast. It's exciting. It's crosses into the box. It's shots from the edge of the area. But then look, they haven't come up against players like Premier League level yet. So in League One,
you played Liverpool. Did you do this? Did you play that way against Liverpool as well? Did you continue to play his way?
Liverpool was very different because it was still very early on in Paul Warne's era, and there were injury problems as well. So some of the players available were sort of square pegs in round holes. Now, from that night, those square pegs in round holes have actually stayed in those positions because they impressed so much at Liverpool. I mentioned Craig Forsyth a little earlier on. Louis Sibley's another one that's done it at left back, and he played there that night. Liverpool was very different because I think that was a big turning point for Paul Warne, because you saw the character of the side, because they actually did have to sit and they had to defend and they had to see it through and show some sort of togetherness, and felt like there was a switch that flicked after that game. So I think the version Liverpool saw compared to the version West Ham are going to see at Pride Park as well, I think will be very different. And look, there's room for optimism with how it's going at the moment for Derby. They'll be full of confidence, so that might play into it with the way you were talking about West Ham just then.
Well, we haven't scored a goal in the Premier League. We haven't scored a goal in the opening 20 minutes of any game yet this season.
What's gone on then? I don't.
We just don't attack. Our game plan, if you like, is to keep it tight. Michael Antonio does the podcast with Callum Wilson, and last season Antonio said, you know, Moyes, the instructions for Moyes is to essentially defend for an hour, and then for the last half hour try and nick it. And if something happens in the first hour, brilliant. And it's difficult to ignore that. That's a player telling you what their team's instructions are. And going by what we'd seen before, we heard that, and obviously post that, it adds up. You can't disagree with what Antonio said, and we do tend to just try and keep it tight. But the problem is we're not always good enough to keep it tight, and we find ourselves going a goal down before the shackles have come off, if that makes sense. So Moyes' game plan is to keep it 0-0 for as long as possible, then go for the win. But the reality is we go 1-0 down, and then we're chasing the game kind of thing. I think the earliest we've scored in a Premier League game this season is the 19th minute or something. I think we're the only team not to have scored a goal in the first 15 minutes of the Premier League, but it's a few minutes beyond that as well. So, I'm really nervous for this one. I just think if you had a checklist of things you need for an upset in the FA Cup, this game's got it all. It's got absolutely everything. It's got the story of Derby County. I didn't even know about the anniversary. That's just another thing that's added into the mix. You're playing well. You're confident. You won the last 6 games. It's a big occasion for the club. And at the minute, it's not really a game that West Ham need. The players aren't in great form. There's 1 or 2 players in good form, but that's about it. I'm not even sure they'll start on Monday night. I think we'll see some rotation. We've got a manager under pressure. There's just too many things that make me worried. Then you add in the factor it is a Monday night and it's on TV. I'm really nervous for this one, but what's your score prediction, may I ask?
Wow. Score prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 to Derby. Why not? I can't not.
Well, I did that as well. Don't worry about it. I went 2-1 Derby as well. But Dominic, wow. Yeah. Honestly, I think I'm nervous. I'm not looking forward to it. I think it's got, like I said, it's got all the ingredients you need for an upset is here. It's just a case of can Derby rise to the occasion and can West Ham rise to the occasion? And at the minute, the latter, I'm going to say no. I don't think we will. I think.
Could it get hostile in the fact as it got to that point?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there's a larger away allocation may not benefit David Moyes. It may benefit West Ham United. And should we start winning, it'll be fine. But should we start getting embarrassed a little bit, then possibly. There is a lot of frustration at the minute, and so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, like I said, the extra allocation might be a bad thing for Moyes. If we start winning, then it'll be a good thing. But should we start losing, it could be a bit of a tricky atmosphere to navigate. I know quite a few people that were at the previous away game against Wolves, and we got beaten. I think Moyes went over to the away fans after the game, and I think a lot of them told him to turn around and bugger off back to the other side of the pitch, kind of thing. Which is, understandable. If you'd seen the game, it's understandable. We barely did anything. We barely attacked Wolves. It was poor. It was really poor. So yeah, I think there's a lot of frustration at the minute and a lot of worry. And I think if we lost, I think it's pressure cooker environment, isn't it? I don't need to describe it to your fan base. You've been through enough. You know exactly what I'm referring to here. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one on Monday for both teams.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I'm looking forward to it, though.
Well, I'm glad you are. I'm not. But Dominic, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you guys at home have enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on and subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. The link to Dominic's Twitter profile is in the description. You want to go give him a follow and keep up to date with everything going on at Derby County and how Dominic reports on the game before and after as well. Links in the description. Catch you in a bit.